This is a topic, frankly, that we could spend 3 days talking about, right? And I've got 30 minutes. So I'm not even going to try and cover everything that comes to mind on this topic. What I'm going to try and do is give you a few things to take away, which I think are important. So starting with here, and this is not in the slides, but you've heard about OSEC. And how many people are familiar with participating in OSEC? Okay, not very many. So the Open Compliance and Ethics group, which Michael talked about first thing yesterday morning, is a wonderful resource for those of you involved in any aspect of GRC. Their Red Book is intended as a guide to how you implement effective GRC within an organization. And they actually will come out and consult with companies and give them some help in what are some of the best practices and how you actually do GRC. Now, one of the things that about GRC, which is, as they see it, is important. I mean, several of us have used their definition of GRC. I mean, it's one I like, and I'm also on their leadership council, and SAP is a major sponsor of OSEC. But they believe in this thing called principled performance, all right? And their view of GRC is more of a philosophy. Michael talked about this a little bit as well. He talks about GRC being a collaboration and effective GRC requiring more federation of roles among those participating in the GRC space. And that's what a lot of OSEC talks about. So I would very definitely participate in OSEC. You can go to www.osec.org. If you want to get more information, shoot me an email and I'll have somebody get back in touch with you. Their Red Book is great. They have a new publication for internal auditors, which if I remember correctly is called the Burgundy Book. And the Burgundy Book is intended as a guide for auditors who want to audit the effectiveness of GRC processes. Okay? And what you'll find is OSEC is a not-for-profit organization and its members are practitioners, academics, and vendors and analysts. So you've got a broad view. It's not biased in any way. And it really does try to give practical guidance to people implementing and running organizations. They've just got a new website look with discussion groups, and so I really strongly recommend you look at this one. There is a membership, but I can probably get that way for you for a period of time. Okay, if you can't get it direct, like I said, shoot me an email and I'll pass it and we'll get something. Michael does training in the application of the Red Book in terms of actually putting in effective GRC. He calls these GRC boot camps. You can find them from his website, and from what I've seen, they're very, very good. And so I'd again very strongly recommend considering this if you're really trying to understand what is GRC and how do you become effective. Because, okay, he's an analyst, but he's a really smart guy. And I believe his thinking deserves a lot of our attention. So we'll come to this one. I think this is probably the largest takeaway I'd ask you to leave with, which is the value of OSEC. One of the things I've observed, and I shared with the organizers, is that everybody seems to be coming up with their own definition of GRC. And I find that quite frustrating. We have decided we're going to go with this one. It's independent, it's objective, and it makes sense. Okay. Now, having said that, I came up with my own definition of GRC. In fact, I decided to change GRC to B2NY to describe what GRC really is, because I think we get it wrong. B2NY is you imagine that you have a ticket to a great Broadway theater show tonight. Okay? Now, are you going to go run out into the street, stop the first good-looking car, BMW or Lexus, grab that driver, knock him senseless, get in that car and drive 125 miles down I-95 so you can get there in time, park on the sidewalk, and go in and see the show? No, you're not. Because there are certain risks involved. One of those risks being compliance. And so what you really want to do is you want to get there safe. You want to get there not in handcuffs, with all your body parts attached, but you actually do want to get there in time to see the show. And I think too often when we think about GRC, we think about risk and we think about compliance. And we think about risk and compliance so much we never actually get to see the show. And I think the OSEC definition does talk about, especially the governance piece, is understand what the stakeholders of the organization are trying to achieve and how do we, through the governance aspect of the board and the management team, ensure we actually achieve that performance. Staying in compliance and considering and taking allowance for risks. Risks have to be in the context of performance. We don't look at risks just to reduce them. So I think this definition is a good one, and if you're looking for a definition of for your organization of what is GRC, I advocate this one. Okay. Having said all of that, it's got nothing to do with my presentation. What I want to do is just talk about one aspect which we believe is important, and that is strategy and risk. The relationship between strategy and risk, because I think a lot of organizations miss this. The National Association of Corporate Directors just came out with a white paper following up on the key principles of organizational governance. And they provide a couple of pages of guidance for directors on risk. And then they talk about strategy. But they don't talk about considering risk and setting strategy and identifying risks to strategy and the linkage between them. And so this is the second part of it is, if you're trying to actually grow shareholder value, a lot of that is going to be driven by the strategy, and linking risk to strategy is so critical. One of the reasons that I think this is going to be more important over time is the fact, I think it's a fact, that the SEC is going to require more disclosures around risk. Risk as it relates to the governance of the organization, risk as it relates to compensation. Now those are still out for discussion right now, but I think that there's going to be more disclosures. The board is going to get more involved. They are very strategic in their thinking. And so they are going to be wanting to get management to tell them why their risk management is okay. And they may come back, obviously, to you guys for help in achieving that. We've also got the S&P. I just mentioned this. I think everybody's very familiar with this, right? I don't know how much of an issue it's going to be. Their preliminary report, which came out recently, indicated that it may actually not be that much of a problem after all. But we'll have to wait and see.